Congratulations! I'm Amina Lutfi. I'm a professional organizer and I am passionate about wedding planning. Would you believe, you won't believe, all 3 of my children were married the same year. Not only that, I helped to organize all of those weddings, one of which was a destination wedding in Costa Rica. As a professional organizer, I learned a great deal about wedding planning. I'm going to share all of the details with you, the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the goods and the bads. I'm going to share every morsel with you. Stay tuned to the end because you could win a beautiful wedding journal that I personally designed. Today we're going to talk about, the segment we're going to talk about today is finding the best reception location. I have 5 really good tips. Now these are tips that you might overlook, so pay attention and stay with me till the end because I have a contest and you just might win. Okay? So we're going to get started here on the tips, the 5 tips for finding the best wedding location. All right. Most bride and grooms know where they'll be holding the ceremony, the actual wedding ceremony, but suppose you're going to have the reception at a different location, not at the area, maybe you're having the wedding, let's say for example at a church, and you're not going to have the reception at the church. Most people don't. They usually have a separate location. So these are some really good tips that I've come up with for you to help you out with your wedding planning. So the distance. So think about the distance. When you're looking at a reception location for your wedding, think about the distance. If people, this is human nature. So listen to this. If people have to drive too far, if your guests have to drive too far after the wedding, guess what can happen? They may not end up at your reception. They may get distracted and say, you know what, this is really too long. I'm hungry. I'm going to stop and get something to eat, or I'm going to go home and watch the game or whatever else. So you don't want to lose your guests. So make sure that the distance is not too far from the location. You want it to be no more than 30 minutes. 30 minutes is actually a pretty long time. But let's say if you live in the LA area, like I happen to live in the LA area right now, it may take you 30 minutes once you get through traffic in order to get to the reception. But try not to make it more than 30 minutes. 15, 30 minutes, ideal. Okay? So that way you don't lose your guests. Because after all, you've planned for your guests in terms of the catering and all of the above, which is, it's costly. So you want to make sure all of the guests in terms of the head count actually arrive at your reception. Plus you want to have a very festive and gala event as well. You want all your guests to be there. Okay, so the next tip I want to give you is think about the time. So time is not just in terms of distance, but if your reception is going to start a little bit, you're going to start your reception a little bit later. Then, once you get there, you take your photos and all of that, and then you're actually going to have let's say you're going to have a sit-down reception. So the guests are not going to sit down and eat for a while. Make sure that you have something for the guests to eat, some munchies or some finger foods or something, punch, and that way they'll stay and they'll wait until the actual formal reception starts. So that's just a little tip. In addition to being concerned about the distance and possibly losing your wedding guests because the trip or the drive to the reception is a little bit too long. Also, if you start your reception after your wedding, if you started, you're taking lots of photos. I've gone to weddings and it seemed like forever for the reception to actually get started because I think sometimes what happens is the bride and groom lose sight of the guests actually standing around waiting for the formal reception to start. You're taking a chance on your guests possibly saying, well, this is too long, and maybe thinking of other things that they could possibly be doing, better things to spend their time, so they may not stick around. You don't want that. You definitely don't want that to happen. But if you just keep it down to a minimum in terms of the amount of time your guests are waiting for the formal reception to start, it'll give family and friends a chance to meet and greet, which is a nice thing because oftentimes they haven't seen each other in a while if individuals have traveled from different locations. So that's a great time for them to mingle, but don't make it too long. All right, the size of your reception. People like to have their personal space, so don't, when you think about reserving a location, think about the number of individuals, your guests you're going to actually have. You don't want it to be a huge ballroom if you've only invited 50 guests, of course not. But you want to have it sufficient so that individuals don't feel like, oh my goodness, this is way too crowded or it's too hot in here. So you definitely want to think about the size and how comfortable your guests' comfort level while they're at the reception. I was told of a reception that took place in Northern California in the Sacramento area during the summer, and it was really, really hot. And the individuals who had gone to the reception came back and complained profusely because they said the air conditioner wasn't working. Oh my goodness. They would suffered the whole time, and they couldn't stop talking about how miserable they were while they were at the reception. So definitely take that into consideration. The next thing I want to mention is climate control. So are you having your reception during the summer? If you're having a reception during the summer, and the weather gets really, really hot in a particular area, make sure that, again, that AC is working, that everything is working according to where it's supposed to be working in order to keep your guests nice and comfortable throughout the time that they're at the reception. Also, on the opposite end of that, let's say if it's during the winter months or during the colder months, and you're having a reception inside, of course, probably, and it's chilly inside. Guests are cold, but you want your guests to get up and dance and circulate and connect with one another. They're probably going to sit there with their coats on and complain the whole time about how cold it is. So think about that too. That's on the opposite end of your location, your reception location being too warm. It can also be too cold. So definitely check out the temperature, the climate control. Talk to the facility manager to make sure that everything is in working order. You don't want to get there and then they say, oh, we did forgot to tell you that the AC is out. No, that's not going to work. So make sure you check on that. All right. So next thing, smoking. Now this is a hot button issue, but you want to determine, is there smoking permitted? Is there no smoking permitted? If there's smoking permitted, you want to make sure it's far enough from the guests so that it doesn't interfere with guests while they're there, and individuals have allergies, individuals are turned off by smoking. So you want to check with the facility manager whether to determine two things. Number one, is smoking permitted? If smoking is permitted, you want them to tell you exactly where the smoking location is so you can gauge as to whether or not it would be far enough from the rest of the guests so it doesn't cause the guests to feel uncomfortable or inconvenienced by individuals smoking. Smoking, as I said, is a hot button issue, but there are some individuals who still smoke and would want to go out perhaps and have a cigarette or two, okay, regardless of what we may think about it. All right, so facility coordinator. So when you're talking with the facility coordinator, make sure that you have really good communication with them. They understand exactly what your needs are before you sign the contract. And then when you do look at the contract, make sure that you understand exactly what the contract stipulates, the hours, whether or not you can have outside music, whether or not, there's certain areas that are restricted. Those are the things that you want. Those are the things that you want to actually have the facilitator, the individual who is managing the facility, to be able to share with you so there's no surprises. So just keep in mind that before you sign the contract, make sure that you have really good communication, you understand what is involved in terms of renting the location. All right, so that's it for now, and I hope you've gained some information in terms of some helpful information in terms of determining or identifying a really good reception location. All right, so I'll talk with you later. Meanwhile, I'm wishing you endless love. I'm hoping this video was helpful. If so, like and subscribe. Check out the elegant jewelry and accessories for your wedding at my website, bridesjewelryshop.com. If you have any questions or any suggestions or any comments, I'd love to hear from you. For your chance to win one of my beautifully and personally designed wedding journals, simply comment below with your wedding date. I'm wishing you endless love. Bye-bye for now.